You're listening to Agency Alchemy, a podcast from Advertising Week. Join us as we sit down with top agency executives to uncover the secrets behind their success and explore how they're navigating the ever-evolving advertising landscape. From discussions around innovative strategies and emerging trends to effective leadership conversations, each episode offers invaluable insights into what it takes to thrive in today's evolving marketing world. If you like this podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you're looking for more content like this, check out our roster of podcasts available now on the Advertising Week Podcast Network at www.advertisingweek.com/podcasts. Thanks for listening. With the 2026 FIFA World Cup arriving in North America, soccer has moved beyond a growing sport to become a major cultural force. For brands, clubs, and sponsors, the challenge is no longer simply showing up, it's finding authentic ways to become part of the culture. Joining me today is Malcolm Buick, Chief Creative Officer at Athletics, a creative studio working at the intersection of sport, culture, and design. We'll discuss the rise of soccer across North America, the power of local identity and brand building, how AI may reshape the fan experience, and what the lasting impact of the World Cup could leave behind. Malcolm, welcome to the show. I'm so pleased to have you on today.
Thank you for having me. It's a joy to talk about something I'm very fond of.
I can imagine. Well, to kick us off, before we get to that, tell us about Athletics and what you do there.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Athletics, we're a creative company focused on what we like to say brand innovation at this intersection of sport, culture, and design. Just to unpack that a little bit more, we build living design brand systems, not just logos or campaigns. Work that shows up in the real world actually gets used by people. Our goal is pretty simple: make work that works. If it can live with fans, players, or communities, it's not finished. So, that's just a little bit of a snapshot of who we are. In short, I will say, Richard, we're a design studio.
Excellent. Well, you're a Scotsman living in New York. From your perspective, how does it feel watching North America step into the global spotlight as host of the 2026 FIFA World Cup, which I should say at the time of recording this is days away?
Yeah, I'm excited. One thing to point out, I just scored a ticket today. It's my first ticket to ever see Scotland in a World Cup game against Morocco on June the 19th. Came from a friend of a friend, so I'm very excited about it. So I may speak with a little bit more emotion as I go through this, but it feels pretty special, I think, to be a Scotsman. I think the 94 World Cup really gave North America that permission to care about soccer, but it was still very much at that time imported from Europe, not as much homegrown, and far from the interest that it has now. I think 2026 feels like confidence. It feels like a new chapter. And if Scotland's there, it adds a personal layer. Watching your country play on the stage in cities you now call home, it's powerful. So, but I think this particular game, it's not about copying Europe or South America anymore. It's about North America embracing the game in its own way, own voice, own energy, and own culture. I'm really excited about it.
Well, we've seen a massive rise in the sport's popularity here. New MLS clubs every 10 minutes, it seems, celebrity ownership, even, pop culture. Hits like, Ted Lasso has undoubtedly fueled some of that. What in your mind is fueling this momentum, including all of the above? And how do you see local identity sort of shaping the future of the sport?
Yeah, sure. I think local identity is the real driver. UMLS clubs, celebrity ownership, pop culture. I think each country in the world has its own flavor that makes their soccer or football particularly special. I think the US is built on entertainment, right? And I think, with these new clubs coming in and, they've always been about pop culture. And I think moments like Ted Lasso that you mentioned, they all help. But I think the real growth sticks when cities see themselves in their teams, when a club reflects its community, its culture, its people. The fans don't just watch, they start to belong in these teams. I think huge things like EPL watch parties and Saturday AM are particularly buzzy. Packed crowds in key cities watching their teams. It's jumping. I have two daughters that play travel, and the momentum of the women's game fueled by the national team and their legacy is infectious. So, young girls see themselves in these athletes. They're amazing ambassadors for the sport. They're also the lower leagues, USL and USL2, and MLS just announced kind of an expansion with their MLS Next group. So you've kind of, while the business model is slightly different, as the European clubs have promotion relegation, I think this broader sort of set of clubs coming into the mix are just really reaching these broader markets. It's akin to a League One, Two in the UK, and they're playing in dusty pitches. They're setting up their own traditions. Some don't have stadiums. They're making it work wherever they can make it work. Vermont Green is an amazing example as that, Hearts of Pine in Maine. So I think MLS has gone from being this upstart indie to like mainstream. I think USL is attracting sold out crowds at soccer specific stadiums. Youth soccer's grown, 8x maybe? I think the US talks soccer now, they shop soccer now, they follow soccer now. So, millions of us are experiencing soccer the way it's supposed to be experienced in its totality, not just the gear and the game and the culture. I could go on about data and facts here, but I think it's there's a lot really fueling this next momentum. The World Cup obviously being a catalytic moment for that new sort of moment of growth.
You've worked with MLS, as a league. You've worked with my Seattle Sounders, Nashville, brands deeply tied to their local communities. How can global sponsors learn from that sort of local first approach when activating around 2026, particularly in World Cup?
Yeah, and it's great to work with clubs like the Sounders, who obviously have a legacy, 50 years old, and Nashville being kind of a brand new club. And Sounders was particularly special in that, I think the foundation of their team started by Dundonian from Scotland, or at least was a part of it. So that made that a little bit extra special. But I think what global sponsors can really learn from, I think, these local first clubs is really listening. These clubs succeed because they understand their cities and their people and their traditions deeply. I think they understand the culture, they get the people, they get the pride. Part of our work with the Sounders is really going into the community and really understanding that. And before you even put pen to paper, it's about digging in deep and understanding. So global sponsors really should take that approach, city by city. Local truth always beats global volume, especially in soccer. Nashville is a music city. We amplified that experience. We took sort of the beat of Nashville, the Nashville beat, and kind of made that part of the DNA of the Nashville identity that we worked with. Sounders has a 50-year legacy in a stadium that packs 40,000 people, as in a regular game, sometimes rising to 65,000 in these bigger games. So you got to respect what the fans say and want. That's the way in, for sure.
When it comes to sort of helping shape the visual and cultural identity of these teams, what is your philosophy on building these brands in a way that resonates emotionally while standing out in what is a very crowded global landscape? And for that matter, as per what you were just talking about, a crowded local landscape as well.
Yeah, I think it's emotion first. If people feel something, they'll remember you. Design should never be about decoration. I think it's about how belief is built. The challenge is, as you say, is standing out without losing authenticity. And that only happens when the brand is really rooted in something real, emotion being a part of that. So it really starts there. If people don't feel something, they won't remember it. Sports brands don't just compete on performance, they compete on relevance. The strongest ones live beyond the pitch: music, fashion, film, and everyday culture. We all know the Welcome to Wrexham story, and where a football club becomes a story about community identity and belief, not just the results. That's really magic and special. You got people in North America booking their holidays to go to Wrexham and do pub tours, and it's kind of wild. And you also see that in how football shows up in fashion, tunnel fits, streetwear collaborations, borrowing from the NBA or the NFL, kind of bring that into soccer is really interesting. And I think the crest, if you will, or that badge, isn't just for match day anymore. It has a lot of work to do, and it lives and exists in many different places and spaces. So our job, I think, as building brands is to cut through that without forcing it, emotionally rooted, visually clear, culturally fluent. Standing out matters, but never at the expense of authenticity. When a brand feels real, I think people really carry it with them.
There's been talk about this being the first truly AI driven World Cup. And really, probably the Olympics aside, the first truly AI driven sporting event that isn't a single, like a 3 hour Super Bowl or something like that. From an innovation and branding standpoint, how do you feel AI may or may not change the way fans experience the tournament, both digitally and in real life?
Yeah, I mean, I think we work in it. We do a lot of beyond our sport endeavors and work there. We work in it. We work with brands like Google, etc. And so, we use the tools in our trade. And I want to underline that idea of tool. It's a tool for us. I think human ideas and intelligence and creativity are still very important. That's firmly my belief. But I do think AI will really quietly improve how fans experience a tournament. Smarter content, personalized storytelling, hopefully easier access to tickets. But, maybe contrary to opinion, I forgot my ticket today. So I still believe in that. And it was a decent price. And travel and match day moments. I think the best of use of AI won't maybe feel like technology at all, is the hope. It should just feel like the World Cup working better for you. And that's sort of that's sort of my fundamental belief, how we think AI will change that fan experience in 26 and beyond.
And how do you think brands could be utilizing AI and tech related technology for, along with maybe real time data without losing the soul of the sport itself?
Yeah, I think it's about restraint and using it with restraint. As soon as you start to we've seen what VAR's done, and whether you love it or hate it, whether you succeeded or failure, yeah, and we could go on forever about that. But I think really about using it with restraint. AI should really support emotion, not replace it. You're never going to replace the emotion, the real human emotion that goes with watching a game and being there for your club, being there with your friends, your family, and your community. So not replacing it, I think, is a hard underline for me. I think the moment it becomes performative or gimmicky, that's when fans switch off. The sweet spot is really going to be when tech helps fans feel more connected to the game, the players, and hopefully each other.
If I were a brand and I'm looking to engage authentically with the World Cup audience, and that could be cross platform, where should I be focusing my energy? What would separate a meaningful soccer partnership with sort of a superficial sponsorship?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I think brands need to add something real. I think whether that's access, utility, community support, or maybe even storytelling, fans can tell immediately who's there to participate versus who's there to advertise. I think meaningful partnerships give value, superficial sponsorships just add noise. I think too many brands go big on visibility, logos adds noise and all that stuff, and forget that the fans don't care about presence, they care about participation. And I think the World Cup is so emotional. I know there's a lot of emotion fraught with this particular World Cup that I won't go into. But as soon as that game starts, hopefully that will go away. And the focus is about, the culture of it and the community of it. And I think if brand feels like it's interrupting rather than adding to the energy, it really feels vague. And I want brands to be around. I don't want them to just be here for that next, several weeks we have of these amazing games. Like, stick around, be around for the party before, in between, and after, and continue to invest in the game. It is an international language that cuts through, crosses borders. So I think brands need to really add something real and stick around.
That's a great segue to my next question. Um, how do you feel that brands, leagues, fans, all of the above can keep this going and prevent it from fading once that final whistle blows, making it a part of North America's long-term cultural DNA? What needs to happen for that to, for us to ride this into the future and keep this going?
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's done right, the legacy is long term. We've seen the effects of 94 and onwards. We have a client just now, soccer.com. They are the online retailer for sports goods and expertise and point of view on the game, the culture, all of that in North America, not just from an avid player, but travel teams all the way down. They really support it, and they were around in '94. They used to be called Eurosport, and they've obviously seen that ride and that change, and it's very important to them. And I think if it's done right, the legacy is long term. More kids playing, better infrastructure, stronger local clubs, and we're seeing that. We talked about MLS2 or the expansion of MLS from MLS Pro. USL expanding into other leagues and women's game, the NWSL, more teams happening there. There's just more to kind of share around. And I think, stronger local clubs, clearer pathways from grassroots to pro. I think that's what's needed. And I think that is, a key part of what that legacy will leave behind. Beyond the stadiums, you should leave belief, and I think that soccer belongs here and is part of everyday life across the US, Canada, and Mexico. There's no question in Mexico, US, and Canada, it's relatively maybe still seen as a new sport, but it doesn't feel like that anymore. And that's someone who's been here for 20 plus years, and I've seen the growth of it and been in the game, and, it's here to stay, and it's really rooted into the DNA. So I think, that's my hope, that's the legacy. It will just continue to grow as time goes on.
Do you have a prediction, where we're just a few days out? I know who you're rooting for, but if you had to pick a winner this far out, who would it be?
Scotland, big time. Come on, we're here. We're here. Prediction, I hate predictions. The World Cup's so full of, the game itself is such an emotionally turbulent game, but if any of my friends hear this podcast and I say England or say any other team, that's the end of me. I got to say Scotland just for the hell of it, right? We're passionate country. We're 5.2 million people. I think people are taking mortgages out on their houses and, doing all manner of things to scrape the change together to make it over here. And, that says something. They say they're here for the party, but I like to think that they're here for the party and hopefully the successes. We'll see, right? But, if I was to sum up that 26 World Cup in one sentence as a fan, I think for North America, I think it's the moment North America doesn't just host the World Cup. It's here to join it and firmly be part of it.
Absolutely. Well, Malcolm, this has been an absolute pleasure. If one wanted to find out more about yourself or athletics or the work you do, where should they go?
Yeah, you can go to athleticsnyc.com, our website, check us out and our work. We're small, we're mighty, and we love sport. It really sits at the heart of what it is that we do. So yeah, come say hello.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for taking part in the recording today. This was great.
Right on. Thank you, Richard.